Hello.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I think yesterday I discussed matching the capacity and the demand part. When the demand is very high and when the demand is too low in both the cases. That is for the demand to match the capacity and in case of adjusting the capacity to match the demand. Both the parts. Now here, though we try to match through both the ways, the demand and capacity, many a times practically it is not feasible and not possible to match the demand and capacity of the services rendered. Maybe in many cases, the capacity is more, or maybe reverse the case. That is, demand is more than accommodation of the customers, or you can say the capacity is a problem here. So we say that sometimes it is not possible to manage capacity to match the demand. It may be too costly. Like for example, in case of health clinics, it's not feasible economically just because you have more demand to increase the facilities, right from the building layout to include more physicians, more specialist doctors, and the equipments. So you cannot think of increasing that capacity. There are limitations as far as this fixed cost is uh, considered. Now here, in this case, there is only one option left, that is waiting, or the option is just the waiting line or the waiting time, we say it. Many times the demand is also very unpredictable and the service capacity is very inflexible. That is, you cannot accommodate more of the customers in the present scenario of the service. In that case, the wait may occur when the demand backs up because of variability in length of the time for services. Now I gave you an example of the physician. Okay, maybe even though you taken prior appointment, but still there is a possibility that at the set time the physician might not be free because his time depends upon individual patient's problems and the solutions. So sometimes he may take the longer times, or maybe sometimes, maybe in a very small span of time, the things get over, the services are rendered. So here the time frame is not predictable as such. That's why for most service organizations, waiting customers are a fact of life at some point. Waiting can occur on telephone also. Now here, many of you might have experienced this on telephone. That is, I'm speaking about the customer care department. Customers are put on hold when they call in to ask some information, some ordering thing, or specifically in case of a complaint registration. And in person also. That is, customers waiting in line at the, maybe if you visit banks, post office, even doctors. I gave an example just now. So here there is a queue, long queue, waiting for the services. So here it depends upon the intensity of the service provider and the customers. Now, in case of post office, you will have to wait till your number comes. You cannot say that maybe I will go to some other service provider. No, that's not. Maybe you can visit the other post office which is nearby. But in case of hotels, you have that leverage. Okay, you enter into a restaurant or a hotel, there it is flooded, you don't have space, maybe you check into the other hotel. So here it depends upon which type of service it is. Now here waiting can occur even with service transactions also, like through mails, delays in mail order, or backlogs of correspondence on a manager's desks. That is also an example. Now here, tell me how many of you like to wait in a queue? I think nobody of us are satisfied with this. So in today's fast-paced society, waiting is not something which people tolerate. As people work for long hours, as they have their own individual ledgers and families, the pressures on the people's time is greater than ever. In this environment, customer is looking more for quick service, efficient service with the no wait actually. Organizations that make customers wait take the chance that they will lose business, or at least the customers will be dissatisfied. Now here, many of the researchers have suggested that waiting time satisfaction is nearly as important as service delivery satisfaction with respect to customer loyalty. Now here, when we say it is inevitable, in some of the services areas, like I gave an example of the doctors, it is inevitable. You have to wait till your turn comes. Now, to deal effectively with this inevitable waiting time, organizations can use a variety of strategies. Now, in general, there are 4 strategies or 4 options available for the service providers. They employ operational logic, establish a reservation process, differentiate waiting customers, and make waiting pleasurable or tolerable. If customer waits are common, the first step is to analyze the operational processes to remove any inefficiencies that may be, if really there is any problem, why the customer is waiting. So you remove the inefficiencies. It may be possible to redesign the system to move customers along more quickly. Maybe in case of processes, you can think of increasing. Suppose if a bank is there, okay, you can during the peak hours, that is 10 to 1, you can increase the counters. Reverse is the case in some of the banks, that is also true. So here, to give quick services, the companies have to design their own operational systems. Now, when introducing its express check-in, now Marriott hotels used an operation-based modifications to eliminate much of the waiting time for the guests who were the loyal guests. The guests who use a credit card and pre-register can avoid waiting in line at the hotel front desk altogether. The guest can make it from the curb outside the hotel to his or her room in as little as 3 minutes when escorted by a guest service associate who checks the guest into the hotel, picks up the keys and paperwork from a rack in the lobby, and then escorts the guest directly to the room. So such type of examples will be helpful for the organizations to overcome this aspect of waiting time. Now, when the queues are inevitable, the organization faces the operational decision of what kind of queuing system to use or how to configure the queue. Now here the queue configuration refers to the number of queues, their locations, their spatial arrangements, and their effect on consumer behavior. Now queuing theory is used in this aspect to minimize the customer's time in waiting area. Now the next point is establish a reservation process. When waiting cannot be avoided, the option is a reservation system, which can help to spread the demand. Now we come across the experience that in case of restaurants, transportation, railway services, okay, theaters, visiting doctors, and many other service providers use a reservation system to care about this long waits for the customers. The idea behind a reservation system is to guarantee that the service will be available when the customer arrives. So here in this case, you reserve your seat or you book your seat in advance so that you are assured that the services will be rendered as soon as you enter the premises. Beyond simply reducing waiting time, a reservation system has the added benefit of potentially shifting demand to less desirable time periods. That is one of the option here. Now, a challenge inherent in this reservation systems, however, is what to do about no shows. That is, if there is at that particular time, suppose if you have the reservation or for a particular train, and if the train gets cancelled, then there is a problem. In rare case, this is, or you book for a particular show and the show gets cancelled. That is also a possibility here. Now the third is differentiate waiting customers. Now here the organization can come up with this aspect. Not all customers necessarily need to wait the same length of time for service. On the basis of need or customer priority, some organizations differentiate among customers. That is shorter line of waits for a particular segment of customers. Such differentiation reflects management policies regarding whom to select next for the service. That is maybe on the basis of first come, first serve basis, or being the loyal customers. That is on the basis of maybe importance of customer. If a customer visits very much frequently to a particular place, then he is given priority over the newcomers or the other customers. In the waiting area itself, they get a special treatment. They are moved to some other waiting area so that the other new customers, they don't notice them. The next part is urgency of the job. Now here, how much urgent is the need? Okay, this is specifically maybe in healthcare sector, you might have addressed this. If the patient is in a critical condition, so first and foremost thing, he is taken in while the others are made to wait. So that is depending upon the urgency of the job. Duration of service transaction, even duration also plays a role here in case of differentiating the waiting customers. Shorter service jobs get priority. Okay, the longer ones, they are made to wait. Payment of a premium price. The customers who pay something extra, they are given the leverage on the priority basis. So on the basis of payment also, you can differentiate the waiting customers here. Make waiting pleasurable or tolerable. Now here, waiting nobody likes, but you can make it pleasurable for the customers. Now, occupied time feels longer than, that is unoccupied time feels longer than occupied time. So here, maybe you can use a strategy of entertaining the customers in the waiting area, distracting them so that they don't feel left alone, or maybe just killing the waiting time. That is one thing which the companies can think of. Pre-process waits feel longer than in-process waits. That is maybe if you are taking example of a restaurant, when you are in the waiting process, the manager comes and he gives you a menu card. Okay, and he just tells you that start looking at the menu. You can order, maybe by the time you reach the table, you will get the food served. So here, that is in process waits. This means that it is a in process waits. Pattern them or maybe neglected. So that should not happen. So maybe you can think of an organization offering some information to the customers. They are entertained, maybe they are served with a cold drink or maybe water, make them comfortable till the service process starts. Uncertain waits are longer than known. That is you don't know how much time you have to wait. Usually in the medical sector, you experience this, that you don't know how much time you'll have to wait. But maybe in other cases, you can just ask them that how much time it will take. You come to know that maybe if you are given a definite time, then that is bearable. In case of infinite time waits, that's not bearable. You get frustrated most of the times if you are asked to wait longer time, if the waiting time is not defined. Unexplained waits are longer than explained waits. That is, if a person is not able to make you understand how much you have to wait, then there is a problem. Similarly, unfair waits are longer than equitable waits. Suppose if the reason is genuine, then okay, fine. The customer also understands that the demand is exceeding the capacity. But unnecessarily, if they are asked to wait, then there is an issue or a problem. The more valuable the service, the longer the customer will wait. That is, it depends upon the value or design of the service also. Now, maybe if you take an example of a legal advisor, a lawyer, a doctor, a customer is willing to wait because of the value of the service provider. Also, solo waits feel longer than group waits. If you have a group, maybe the people will chit chat here and there and the time is spent. But if a person is alone, then it becomes a problem. He feels very lonely. So in this case, organization should make the customer comfortable. That is what it means. Now, this was about the demand and capacity. The next is the impact of service failure and recovery. So here, what is a service failure? Now, it's generally described as when the service performance is up to the mark or maybe above the customer expectation. We say that the customer is satisfied and delighted. Okay, while in case reverse is the case, that is when the customer's expectations are not met by the service provider, they are not reached by the service provider, then we say that it's a failure of the service, wherein the customer gets dissatisfied. Service recovery refers to the actions taken by an organization in response to service failure. Suppose if there is a service failure, then what action does the service provider take? That is what is the service recovery. Now, failure occurs for all kinds of reasons. The service may be unavailable when promised. It may be delivered too late or too slowly. The outcome may be correct or incorrect. Employees may be rude or uncaring. There may be a number of reasons why there were the service failures actually. Now, what are the service recovery effects or the impacts of it? Now, resolving customer problems effectively has a strong impact on customer satisfaction or loyalty. Customers who experience service failures but are satisfied based on recovery efforts by the organization are more loyal, whose problems get sorted out, than whose problems are not sorted out. An effective service recovery strategy has multiple potential impacts. It can increase customer satisfaction and loyalty and generate a positive word of mouth publicity for the organization. A well-designed, well-documented service recovery strategy also provides information that can be used to improve service as a part of improvement. Now here, a customer perceives that, okay, even though if there is a service failure, the organization is taking efforts to recover the services to mend the errors which were occurred. Unfortunately, many firms do not employ effective recovery strategies, even though they know that there is a service failure, but still many of them, they don't take efforts in this. Now, the research has found that customers who are satisfied with the firm's recovery efforts talk to an average of 8 people, whereas those customers who are dissatisfied with the response talk to average of 19 people about the services. Okay, so you understand the impact of this. Now, one more term which is used here, it is service recovery paradox. Now, what does this mean? Let's have a look at this. Many a times there is a possibility, now it depends upon the intensity of the situation. Okay, when there is a failure and you try to mend it, suppose it's a very important event of a person's life and there is a service failure, then there will be a problem. How much impact of the service failure it will have on the customer, it depends upon that. If the instances are very extreme, though relatively rare, then the person is very much disappointed. Even though you try to build the gap, it won't be possible. Now here, a disappointed customer who has experienced good service recovery might be even more satisfied and loyal. As a result has been, it's labeled as recovery paradox. The recovery paradox is highly dependent on the context and situation. Although one customer may forgive it very easily, while the other may take his impressions or carry his impressions ahead. Now here, researchers found that only the very highest level of customer service recovery ratings resulted in increased satisfaction and loyalty. So here, when you think of this recovery part, if you take the cognizance, then maybe the customer understands the efforts and he becomes your loyal customer and spreads the positive word of mouth publicity. Now, how do customers respond to service failures? What are the possibilities here? Customers who experience service failures, they can react in a number of ways, a variety of ways. Now, negative emotions can carry following a service failure, which includes maybe a person becomes very much angry, he's discontent, disappointed, he can self-pity, there is anxiety and regret that why he chose the particular service provider. These initial negative responses will affect how customers evaluate the service recovery and the ultimate decision to return to the provider or not. So here, first of all, why the people, they complain or they don't complain? Very small number of consumers may have the complaining personalities. The other might switch to the other service provider. So this is the possibility here. The first type comes into maybe the consumers that believe that positive consequences may occur and there are social benefits of complaining and their personal norms support their complaining behavior. They believe that that should and will be provided some compensation for the service failure in some form. They believe that fair treatment and good service are their due and that in case of service failure, someone should make them feel good. Consumers who are unlikely to take any action in most of the situations hold the opposite beliefs. They often feel that complaining is just the waste of time, their time and others' time. Better we switch on to other service provider. Now here what there? customer who is not satisfied can choose to complain on the spot to the service provider, giving the company the opportunity to respond immediately. And the customers who do not complain immediately may choose to complain later to the provider by maybe writing a mail, or over the phone they can complain. Some customers become so dissatisfied targeting the firm's current and publicity. Also, there are the types of complainers like passives. This is the group of customers they least likely to take any action. They are unlikely to say anything to the provider. Okay, less likely than others to spread negative word of mouth publicity. They often say that such things do happen in case of services. So let it go. There are the other categories, voicers. These customers actively complain to the service providers, but they are less likely to spread the word of mouth, negative word of mouth publicity. They actively complain and thus give the company a second chance. They tend to believe complaining has social benefits and therefore do not hesitate to voice their opinions. They believe that the outcomes of complaining less in other types of complaining, such as spreading the negative word of mouth publicity. They feel that it's not useful for them. Now there are irrates also. These consumers are more likely than others to engage in negative word of mouth communication with relatives or the friends. They are about average in their propensity to complain to the provider and are unlikely to complain to the third parties. So these are the irrates. They are less likely to give a second chance to the service provider and switch to a competitor. The next group is the activists. These consumers are characterized by above average propensity to complain on all dimensions. They will complain to the provider, they will tell the others about the services. They are more likely than any other group to complain to the third parties also. As with than the other groups. So these are the 4 types of complainers. The next is customers' recovery expectations. When they take time and efforts to complain, customers generally have certain expectations. They expect the firm to be accountable also at the same time. They expect them to be helped very quickly as and when they complain. So here, if you take into consideration the understanding and accountability of the service provider, in case of service failure situations, customers are looking for extreme actions from the firm. However, they are looking to understand what happened and for firms to be accountable for their actions. Understanding and accountability are very important to many customers after a service failure because they perceive an injustice has occurred to them and they have to blame somebody. Customers expect an apology when the things go wrong, and a company that provides one demonstrates courtesy and respect. Customers also want to know what the company is going to do to ensure that the problem does not occur here. Fair treatment is the other thing. Customers also want justice and fairness in handling their complaints. Service recovery experts have defined 3 specific types of justice that customers are looking for when they are complaining the service provider. The 3 types are outcome fairness, procedural fairness, and interactional fairness. Now, what is this outcome fairness? It concerns that the result, outcome fairness concerns the result that customers receive their complaints. Procedural fairness refers to the policies, rules, and timeliness of complaint process. And the interactional fairness focuses on the interpersonal treatment received during the complaint process. So here, the treatment, whatever the customers are getting, on that basis also you can think from these perspectives. In outcome fairness, customer expects outcomes or compensation that match the level of their dissatisfaction. This compensation can take form of actual monetary compensation, an apology, future free services. Okay, this time the problem has occurred, maybe during the next, whenever you visit, it would be free of cost. Reduced charges, repairs, or replacements. Now, customers expect equity in exchange. That is what they want to feel, that the company has paid for its mistakes in a manner at least equal to what the customer has suffered. That is what is expected here. Customers expect equality. That is, they want to be compensated in a manner similar to other customers who have experienced the same type of service failure. That is what is the outcome fairness. In case of procedural, where the policies, rules, and timeliness of the organization comes into the picture. They want easy access to the complaint process, and they want things handled quickly, preferably by the first person they contact. He should only handle their query. They appreciate companies that can be adaptable in their procedures so that recovery effort can match their individual circumstances. So here they expect that their individual care of the customer should be taken by the managers. Now, these procedures are characterized by speed, clarity, and absence of hassles. That is what the customer expects here. Interactional fairness is above and beyond their expectations of fair compensation and hassle-free, quick procedures. Customers expect to be treated politely with care and honesty. Now, this form of fairness can dominate the other tools. Okay, if customer feels the company and its employees have uncaring attitude and have done little to try to resolve the problem of the customers. That is what it says. So next is the service recovery strategies. Now, what are the strategies to recover the service failure? Many companies have learned the importance of providing excellent recovery for disappointed customers. The first rule of service quality is to do right the first time, so that there is no necessary of recovery. So whenever for the first time only you are providing the services, don't make any mistakes. That is what is indicated, so that there are no errors and there is no scope for service recovery. It is important for a firm to create a culture of zero defections